Good morning, everyone. I can't see you, but digitally, I can already sense your enthusiasm for the opportunity to meet Christina Waters, a candidate for the village clerk of Oak Park. In case we have not met, my name is Mary Jo Schuler, and even though I am today's host, please don't think I am the mastermind behind all the bells and whistles in today's presentation. Because behind the scenes, we have members of Christina's campaign team, including PR specialist Pamela Hessing and event quarterback Kelly Fleming. Like me, these folks are truly inspired by Christina, and they are also volunteering their time to support her campaign. Before we dig in, I want to mention that this morning's gathering isn't just about meeting Christina. She and I also view it as a mini opportunity to celebrate our democracy and, of course, our beloved community of Oak Park. I suspect we all agree that our community is at its very best when our residents take the time to learn about the candidates, to ideally meet them, and then to follow up using their voice at the ballot box. Because together, this is how we, our collective community, ensures that high impact leaders get elected to our local boards. Before I introduce you to Christina, I'd like to describe how I originally became connected with her and why I am hosting this event in her honor. My first sighting of Christina happened earlier in the fall of 2020 when she volunteered her time toward a community project that I've been working on. Basically, she delivered a video testimonial, and I was struck by the way she described her joyful and highly engaged experience while growing up here in Oak Park. And fast forward today, as a single parent of 2 sons and a daughter, and as a volunteer in our school, Christina is helping orchestrate similar experiences for her children, and equally important for all of our community's children. I don't know Christina's children personally as of yet, but if you are familiar with my work, you know that I also care deeply about all children in our community. I also care about the well-being of all of our families, and I certainly care about the support and accommodations for our senior citizens. And this is something that Christina and I have in common, a broad spectrum of care for the well-being of all our residents. And I assure you, this value will always be a fundamental guiding principle of Christina's leadership. Subsequently, during a socially distant face-to-face meeting, I was deeply moved by Christina's desire and enthusiasm to give back. In fact, I think her public service career really began at the age of 16, during her first job when she was employed by our park district as a soccer coach, basketball coach, and lifeguard at Ream Pool. Christina fully embraced these employment and youth mentoring opportunities, and not surprisingly, her work ethic elevated her up the ladder at the park district into roles requiring higher levels of leadership and responsibility. A bit further down the road, after spending 3 years working in the healthcare sector near the lakefront, Christina decided she couldn't stay away and returned to employment back here in Oak Park. In 2017, she accepted a position at Village Hall in the Department of Development Services. In this role, she had exposure to a wide array of Village Hall functions, such as parking, planning, neighborhood services, permits, and licensing. And after 18 short months, she was promoted to serve as Human Resource Coordinator. And in this role, she even recruited police officers to work in our community. Lo and behold, Christina's performance once again caught the attention of fellow leaders, and she landed in the deputy village clerk position, which she currently holds. Let me say that one more time. Christina currently serves as the deputy village clerk. So I think it is fair and reasonable to say that she is both credentialed and experienced to serve as our new village clerk. See, that's one of the bells and whistles I was talking about. At any rate, after meeting Christina, it became clear to me that she has been preparing herself through her lived experience to run for public office since she was a young girl. And that is why we are here today, entertaining the possibility of Christina serving as our next village clerk. And I am truly honored by this opportunity to support Christina's desire to enhance our community through public service. In the invitation for this event, I described Christina as a passionate, authentic, experienced leader and collaborator. I also view her to be a very strong people person. And now you get to decide for yourself. So please join me in welcoming Christina Waters.
Good morning, Mary Jo.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for having me today. That was an amazing introduction. I greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
I greatly appreciate everyone putting the work in for today, as well as those of you who are joining us this morning. So again, thank you. Thank you. So my name is Christina Waters, and I am a lifelong Oak Parker, born and raised here, as Mary Jo had mentioned, and have now decided to raise my children here. I have an 18-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old. So we're really well versed in all of the school systems when it comes to elementary, middle, and as well as high school. I am currently serving as the deputy village clerk, and that is over, of course, at the Village of Oak Park. And as Mary Jo had mentioned, I've spent 3.5 years there. And in that time, I've had the opportunity to really get to know the ins and the outs of village government. So as Mary Jo had mentioned, I started working in local government at the age of 16 through the Park District of Oak Park. And that was one side of local government, right? That's Parks and Recreation, which was phenomenal. And then, as she had mentioned, I went downtown, but came back. And so being at Village Hall has really given me this opportunity to get to know and understand how local government works. During my time in development customer services, I worked, as she had mentioned, as executive secretary to Tammy Grossman. And during my time there, I really got to understand our role as the village to our external customers, to our community, to our patrons. And so that, as she had mentioned, it's through business services, it's through parking, it's through permit processing. And so that was a wonderful experience. During that time, I also got to serve in the Leadership Lab program, which is through the Oak Park and River Forest Community Foundation. And funny enough, during that time, my project was working on civic engagement. So this is something that I've been very passionate about for quite some time. And then I went, as she had mentioned, over to HR, and that gave me another side of internal customer service. So I spent that 18 months getting the external customer service for the village, and then I spent another, I would say, 18 months or so really getting to know the ins and outs of internal customer service. After that time frame, I had this, I was approached and really considered the deputy village clerk role. And I was very excited to hear that it was open and available. And once that opportunity presented itself, I definitely just went for it. And that's where I am today. In that role, I've been able to see how the village clerk's office works. The village clerk really answers to the citizens of Oak Park. If you look at an org chart, you will see how that is laid out. It is the citizens of Oak Park, and then you will see the village clerk. And so that, and it's an independent office. So where I've had the opportunity to be an employee of the village, this would now give me the role to really work for the citizens in the community. There's two things that I've had a lot of fun working in. I would say one of them, we had our recent presidential election in the last November, and it was wonderful to be a part of that democratic process of voter registration, helping people in and around Village Hall during early voting. So that, I realized how much I absolutely loved being a part of that. That was my first time through my work at the village. I had been a part of that process through the Park District of Oak Park when we used to have polling places at the different community centers. I was the liaison between the Cook County Clerk's office and the Park District of Oak Park. So I would work with the staff to make sure we had the buildings open and make sure that we had all of our polling machines at the various polling places. So I worked in that capacity through the Park District, but it was definitely a different experience being able to do so through the village. So with all of this experience and with knowledge and the eagerness to really hit the ground running, I hope to be the next village clerk.
Well, thank you, Christina. I truly never get tired of hearing your story because honestly, it helps to fuel my tank in terms of my continued work in our community in collaboration with an army of other youth advocates. So please know that your story inspires so many. So now we will open it up for Q&A. You all have access to a chat box on your screen. You may forward questions, and as they arrive, they will be printed on the screen and I will read them. So we've already got a question in queue here, Christina. What made you decide to run for village clerk? From Colleen Biggins.
So I think there were several things that made me decide to run. Timing was one of them. When I chatted with Vicki, the current village clerk, and she had decided that she would be running for village president, I did think, well, that means there's an open opportunity. And also, I truly love and am so passionate about the clerk's ability to be so hands-on and to provide a direct service. A direct service provider is what the village clerk is to the community. And that's what I love to do. I thrive in that role. So those were some of the things. Also, I had a few community members just approach me and say, hey, well, what do you think about this? And at the time I was, it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was just like, well, it's not available. So, but then once it became available and open, I found it to be a really awesome opportunity.
Well,
So
I know
part of my purpose and passion.
So many of us are super excited about you stepping up to the plate to serve in this role. So we have another question. What would you consider to be your most outstanding quality for this position? And I want to remind you, we only have an hour, so you can't go through every outstanding quality that you have, but please share your thoughts.
So kind. You are so kind, Mary Jo. I would say the most outstanding, right? Most outstanding qualities that I bring to this position are a few. There's the technical part, the part that I have some experience through the village. I've created these wonderful relationships with people in the village. I've also spent time and years in the community and working within the community and created some really amazing relationships with D97, D200, with Township, all over with various organizations. So those are some outstanding qualities to walk in with. Along with that experience is this time I've had as deputy village clerk. So I really have been in the details for the past 7 months, learning the ins and outs of the entire office. And that is a plus, to be able to not only just go in straight as village clerk, but to have this experience and this knowledge in the deputy village clerk position. And a lot of this knowledge and experience I can bring into the village clerk's offices or as the village clerk's role. I would say one last outstanding quality I would say that I bring to this position is my ability to work with so many people. And I hear from many that my joy of doing so comes through when I talk to people, when I work with people, when I communicate with people in so many various ways and different levels. Even this week, a gentleman wanted to register to vote and wanted to get a no solicitation sticker. To ensure he got that sticker, I dropped it off on his porch. I walked him through the registration process and took that time. And I love being able to do that. So there's a love and a passion there that I think is an outstanding quality for this position.
Great. Well, I agree. You are the antithesis of a bureaucrat, so we appreciate that. Teresa Paul is making a comment here. Teresa Paul, our former village clerk prior to Vicki Skaman, she says she shares my enthusiasm for Christina Water as our next village clerk. So, wow, that is quite an endorsement.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you so much.
And Melanie Weiss, who is very active in our community, says, I am so pleased to learn about Christina Waters. She is so qualified and engaged. And Melanie did Leadership Lab as well. So here is a new question from Rose Morales Hannigan. Can you please tell me what improvements you'd like to implement based on what you've seen in your experiences?
Good morning, Rose. I think that's actually a great question. So I've got notes on that one. Forgive me for looking down. So number one, I would like to have proactive community engagement. And I say that because I think many of us have witnessed in the last few years or so some challenges that we have seen between our commissions, our elected officials, and our community. It's been, there's just been some challenges. And so I would like to, because the clerk really does work with and the Community Citizen Involvement Commission, who is the commission that really brings on all of the volunteers who then volunteer on all of our commissions. I want to look, and I've started already, but I would like to take a good look at what that process looks like, how we can be more actively engaging in that process. Are there any barriers built within that process? And can we change them? Can we implement some changes? And right now, our CRC our Citizen Involvement Commission is amazing. I've had the honor to work with them for the past 6 months or so, but I am definitely looking forward to working and implementing some things with them. And then also through voter education. I think right now I would love to start to have community campaigns around this voter education. When is early voting? What are the hours? How do you register to vote? What are the deadlines? And just having this information easily accessible, not just placed on our internet, but also placed on Facebook, word of mouth, just meeting different people where they are so that voters can have this information readily. So those are some of the things I would like to implement in terms of community engagement. And then I directly see some efficiencies that can be created with document processing. We currently use Legistar and Granicus, which is what our department directors use to upload documents that then go to our village board and our village president. The clerk does a lot of document management within that process. And right now I am hands-on and working within those programs and labeling things. It's a very manual process. So I've been working very closely with Granicus to just educate myself and get to know what opportunities are available so that if I do become the next village clerk, I can get those things implemented as soon as possible.
Well, I agree. You are certainly a child of the technology age, and this is my first Zoom event. In the past, my husband and I have hosted candidate events in our home, and I was certainly intimidated by doing this, but Christina and her team helped to ease all my fears and made it super easy for me. So thank you. We have a new question from Lisa Miller-Oranek. What do you see as the biggest challenges facing the village clerk position, and how would you tackle them?
The biggest challenges, I think right now in general, the biggest challenge is COVID. We're seeing a light at the end of that tunnel, which are the vaccinations. I only say COVID because that face-to-face interaction with the community is vital. But this also did give us, although it is one of the biggest challenges, I also think it was one of the ways that we were able to identify areas of improvement and how we could tackle those areas of improvement through technology. So one other thing I would love to see is phone-in public commenting, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, we just have where you can email or you can provide a hard copy to the clerk, but there are some communities, one specifically in California, where they allow their community members to phone in their public comments. So if they're not able to physically be present, and they were doing this pre-COVID, I believe. So it's possible. And I would like to see something like that implemented here so that everybody can have a voice at that table, and be able to provide their public comments.
Wow, I absolutely love that idea because my community colleagues and I spend a lot of time trying to figure out how we can engage the unengaged, and the phone-in comments thing is really a great idea. Okay, we have a new question from Dawn Gonzalez. Thank you for your service so far and wanting to continue in this new role. Your broad base of experience is great. So it's more of a comment versus a question.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
But we do have a new question here from Wanta Bennett Griffin. And it's a comment. Christina Waters brings a wealth of knowledge and energy to the village clerk position. I am confident in her ability to hit the ground running. I love the way she takes time with our senior residents. My mom had so many questions about a certain village matter, and she was very kind and patient with her. Thank you, Christina, for stepping up to serve. Yay. Okay, Gary Kunine presents a question. Gary Kunine from 7 Generations Ahead. What opportunities do you see to enhance the relationship between clerk and board and village clerk and village manager?
So there's always opportunities for improvement when it comes to relationship building. With that being said, I watch all of our board meetings. And so I have had the opportunity to see where we've come over the last 3 or 4 meetings. And I've been excited to see how they have been communicating, they meaning our village board of trustees, as well as our village president and our village clerk. The last few meetings have been really productive. They've been getting quite a bit done. There just hasn't been that tension that we've seen over the past few years. I think that also there can just be, it's all about how you talk to people. It's about how you treat people. It's about the posture in which you come into conversations. And so just having some self-checks, and I can't control those self-checks necessarily for the board or for the village manager, but I can always self-check me. And within that, and within building those relationships and fostering those relationships with anybody, whether it be the board or the village manager or the director of development customer services or the public works director or the community for that matter, it is just a matter of how, when, where I communicate with people. And I do think that is contagious. Not to say that I can implement change everywhere with everyone, but it just takes one person, right? It takes one person, one instance, one engagement that could really change the trajectory of how things are being done. And I have seen improvements in the village board meetings over the past, I'd say 3 or 4 meetings. So it's been wonderful to watch.
Great. You know, Christina, I will present a question. So there are some signs that our younger population is, waking up to local government. We, as a country, have experienced a fair amount of turmoil over the past several years on a national level and also really on a local level. And so do you have thoughts and ideas about how we can better engage our young people, in voicing their concerns, ideas, and just, being more involved?
So the youth have a really super special place in my heart. They always will. They always have. The youth are our future leaders. They are our leaders now. And I think that, a couple years ago, I had ran this social justice book club with a group of 5th graders. And it was really allowing them, I was there to teach and to share knowledge, but by all means, it was a space for them to learn how to use their voice, or for them to just use their voice if they already knew how to do that. I'm just there as a listener, right?
Yeah.
I'm there to absorb the information. And of course, I'm there in a leadership capacity, but I want to see that leadership pulled out of the youth. I also think there are some unique opportunities that we have within our our various intergovernment spaces, where I remember when I was in 8th grade, and I often tell the story, I was in 8th grade and there was a whole section on Oak Park history. And then in 8th grade, we did the Constitution test. So I remember very specifically in middle school, in junior high at the time, that we were learning about village history. We were learning about the government as a whole. But that was a really unique time, and that could be a very unique opportunity for District 97 to work very closely with the village to start to talk about local government, and in a very apolitical way, right? Doesn't have to be about Democrat or Republican or any of those things. Doesn't have to be any of that. Just what is a village trustee and what do they do and how does it impact us as community members, right? What is the breakup or the makeup of the village government as we see it now? It being the village manager, the village board, the board, the directors. So there's so much knowledge and information that we could be sharing with our youth now. And I think that's where it starts. And then I say that's where the youth can ask questions and they can really engage. I remember career day at Longfellow School. I had so much fun. I created this PowerPoint for the kids about local government and how it was broken down and who was who. And granted, by the end of some of those presentations, I was getting questions like, so who do I call? Because there's a raccoon in my trash can, right? But they were able to put that together, right? Even in the smallest way, they knew that there was this service that was being provided by the village. And so I think that's really important, is education and knowledge.
Well, I love that. And certainly anytime we can give youth an opportunity to just practice using their voice, like in your book group or wherever, I think that's really a good thing. So I have a question here from Dan Lempa. What's your reaction to some people on the board of trustees looking to change the clerk's office?
Good morning, Dan. That's a really good question. And Dawn as well. So there's a couple of things. I do think that those changes go in the wrong direction. That's my opinion, my I statement. I think that, so right now, the clerk is the signing authority on your liquor licenses, your business licenses, and your special event permits. So while I totally agree that that actual process should be completed and overseen by staff, there is this engagement piece that the clerk really should be a part of as the person who signs off on these certificates, these official certificates. So I think that those three things should really come back in a way, and not to say that the clerk should be the overseer of all of those processes, but there should be a part of small business engagement, local business engagement. We're talking about the liquor licenses. It's the same thing, business engagement. And then the special event permits, there's also an opportunity for the clerk to really engage the community in those processes and to share out so that all of that does not fall on staff. So I think there's actually unique opportunities for the opposite of what some of our folks have said, which is to pull away, I believe, more tasks. I think there's actually an opportunity to put some of the tasks that were originally in the clerk's office back with the clerk.
Thank you. We have a question from Lisa Newton-Johnson. To follow up on Rose's question, where do you see the opportunities for efficiencies in Village Hall? Are there places where we can do more with less?
So I'll speak mostly to the village clerk's office because that's where I've been hyper focused as of late in the past 7 to 8 months. Again, I just think, well, in general, actually, Lisa, I would say there is just a way we could totally utilize the technology that we currently have. And it could really cut back on some staff hours. It could help just create some efficiencies for people so that these processes are not as manual. One project I was very hands-on with and actually brought to the HR director was electronic signatures. And it sounds fairly simple to many of us, but we currently pay to use Adobe at the village, at Village Hall. And when I first got over to HR, I would literally walk pieces of paper around to get signatures. A folder with a stack of papers walking around to get signatures. And I said, well, before I just threw the idea out there, I did the homework and created some steps for the rollout, and then brought it to the HR director and said, hey, is there any way that we could just use Adobe, which we're currently using for various things anyway, but we're also paying for, to really cut back on human error, to create efficiencies in time and workforce. And that was right before COVID hit. So it was a wonderful opportunity, despite how difficult COVID was for all of us. It was perfect timing in that then many of us just went remote. And so when it came to electronic signatures, that was necessary in that time. And fortunately, we had a process ready to go. So that's, I would say, our technology, our use of technology.
I like it. Venus Hurd Johnson. Thank you, Christina, for bringing your talents back to Oak Park. You bring a wealth of knowledge to the role. Community engagement is so important. Thank you, Venus. Fred Arkin. Christina is not only highly qualified, but her passion and dedication to the village of Oak Park make her the perfect person to be our next village clerk. I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Fred. Teresa Powell. In the past 3 advisory commissions included high school student members. Can this be expanded where appropriate?
I think it can, Teresa. As a matter of fact, we just had one situation, and I'm not a negative situation, but just a situation kind of come up where we have somebody who would be, he not a teen, but he is a college student, and he wanted to serve on our board of health, but realized that there were some internships that might take him away from the Oak Park area. So we're talking about an individual whose permanent residence is Oak Park, but is just had an opportunity for some internships elsewhere. And so it's really asking these questions. Is it possible that he could serve if Oak Park is his permanent address? If he is a student, he was born and raised here. Is this an opportunity? So Teresa, to answer your question, I would say where appropriate and where possible, I would say this could be expanded so that we can get some voice of the youth on our advisory commissions.
One of the, I love that in expanding the involvement of youth, but I want to go back to your efficiency comments, and, you certainly have lots of tech skills and social media skills. But what I love about you, Christina, is you're a very strong people person. So you can strike a good balance between technology and still being a people person, because, when our residents meet you, they will, they'll feel very good about your representation and, your involvement in our community. So let's see.
So Mary Jo, I just have to say,
yes,
my 14, 10, and 18-year-old might beg to differ on my social media skills. I asked them to help me make a TikTok, and they were like, no, off of TikTok. So I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. Well, you're way ahead of me in terms of technology skills. I know that much. So I think we have, okay, let's see, questions from your team. Christina, what do you like most about working in the clerk's office?
Working for the people, working with the people. I love, who knew at 16 I would be falling directly into my purpose? I had no idea. I was just so excited to be hired by Chad Drufke over at Longfellow Center. I couldn't have asked for a better part-time job as a high schooler. But it was through those years, it's through the work that I even did at Shirley Ryan Ability Lab, it's through the work that I do now through the Village, that my favorite part of working in the clerk's office is being able to be a direct service provider to the people. That brings me great joy.
I love that. Well, again, we are going to come to a close, but again, I want to give a great big thank you to you, the audience, for being here today. If we did not have a chance to answer your question, or if new questions arise after this event, please please reach out to Christina or myself directly. And shifting gears just one more time, as we all know, successful campaigns have lots of moving parts and they require lots of help. And this is how you can help. And I think we've got a slide here. Please sign up to work the phone bank night or help to volunteer at the campaign. Please tell your friends and family about Christina, and keep in mind that today's session can be viewed retroactively on Facebook or on YouTube. Please use the chat or Christina's Facebook page to request a yard sign. And also, please consider making a donation to Christina's campaign. Sadly, campaigns are very expensive endeavors, and we need help filling a $4,500 gap between now and Election Day. And remember, no donation is too small, and any amount will help us reach the finish line. And finally, in closing, if you are also inspired by Christina, please join me and my family in supporting her by voting in the April 6th election, because I promise you, Christina will give her heart and soul to serving you, the people of Oak Park. Thank you very much, Christina.
Thank you, Mary Jo.
Very well.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you to the team, and thanks to the audience. Yay. Enjoy your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.